Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another video game discussion. To the left of my face hole, there is a game called Linda Cubed again. This was a game on the PlayStation 1 that was a port of the PC Engine CD game Linda Cubed. This game was translated 2024. The PC Engine CD, as of the recording of this video on February 1st, 2025, still remains untranslated. I did not have the opportunity to play this game in 2024, instead choosing to play Ancient Roman on the PlayStation 1, which was also translated in 2024, which was supposedly Japan's, I guess, biggest game to meme on and dunk on because it was supposedly one of the worst PlayStation 1 jrpgs ever, and I played it, and it was really good! Like, I'm not saying the story was anything crazy, like people becoming monsters, disease, and like a lot of very basic story with some good emotional beats and a lot of jank, especially with combat and everything else. But the game flowed well. Like, you went from dungeon to other location to dungeon to location, like really fast. It didn't dawdle around. You didn't really need to stop and grind hardly at all, except for a couple of points near the end. But other than that, the game was quite good, and so I was hoping this game was at least going to rival that, and it did not. This actually turned out to be one of the worst RPG experiences I've ever had in history. I have played RPGs across many different genres, consoles. I played Wyvern Tales and the Atari Lynx. That is the worst RPG, but that does not count because it is not a JRPG. It was not released in Japan. This was a game made by Songbird. I've also played games from Japan on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. I played Evolution's Eternal Dungeons, which is a port of the Dreamcast, which is a heavily superior version and way to play Evolution, as well as the fact I played. I've also played the Nigerompa RPG with the job class system, and that one was pretty bad. This game is the worst out of any of the games that I have ever touched, and it's for one simple reason, and it is because the game times you. This game is like if Lunar Dragon Song met Pikmin. This game is like Lunar Dragon Song in a number of respects. You have breakable equipment, which was a fun feature of Lunar Dragon Song. This game also has running hurts you on the overworld. I actually, for people who criticize that about Lunar Dragon Song, I really pushed back on it a little bit. I'm like, that's only a problem at the very beginning of the game. When you start with 20 HP in Lunar Dragon Song and you stop running when you have 10, that's a huge issue. But when you get to the middle or late parts of the game, when you have 100, 200 HP, who cares? It doesn't really matter because you can use a heal gum to heal it all back, heal drop, heal it all back. It's not really a big deal that permeates your entire experience. This game has an insidiousness with its time system that actively punishes the player to the point where you have to keep doing everything over and over and over again until you get it right. It's one thing to play a platforming game when you accidentally time your jump wrong and you fall down. Oh man, I have to go back to this checkpoint, I have to go back to this part of the game. That's one thing for a platformer. You do not want to do that for a JRPG. That is the one genre you do not want to be timed on. And this game does a number of things that punishes you with its time system. Number one, if you grind certain enemies in a location and you're too powerful, you get no EXP, you get no loot, they immediately explode because you're overly powerful and you're not able to get any more EXP. Secondly, because you're timed with everything you need to do, you are having to run everywhere on the overworld. You can't walk. In Lunar Dragon Song, at least you can choose to walk. You are not penalized for walking, other than you're just going to take a little bit longer to get someplace. But it's not like there's a time limit that you're actively being followed for that's punishing you. And the game has a number of confusing features that make no sense. Number one, there's the crafting system, which sounds wonderful. If you beat a certain number of monsters and you have a bunch left over, you can craft a bunch of things. I liked the idea of doing that, so I tried it. Although I lost quite a bit of time doing it, which is another issue. I had to go back and redo it. But when I tried to do that and I crafted something, guess what? You gotta pay money to craft. You actually have to pay quite a lot of money to craft the item you want, which is a problem because the reason you craft in any game that I know of, like Dragon Quest cauldrons or forge pots, is because you don't want to pay for the item in the shop. But this, if you have to do all of that work plus throw money on top of it, you might as well be better off saving time and instead buying the item from the shop instead. And after I reset and did a certain part again, that's exactly what I did. I went ahead and just bought the items from the shop because it is pointless to, if I'm going to spend money anyway, have to dump time into monster resources and other things. It was really kind of a very, very rough issue. Number three, this game penalizes you heavily for having any of your dogs that follow you get wounded. This game does not easily give you access to revives. Instead, you have to go back to town and you have to heal. But you have to go back and you have to heal quickly. You can't just dawdle. You can't like pass go and do all of these other things because the longer you wait, the more likely the wound is to be infected, the more you have to pay. If you wait too long, your dog will die and you won't have a party member anymore. But not only that, you can also use the monsters you defeat for material to make yourself food. Food is wonderful. You're going to prevent yourself from being able to have low HP. You have healing items, hooray, except with the passage of time, your healing items are going to rot. Like, this game is unbelievably punishing because it wants you to operate so fast with the way you play your game. Even on the slowest or easiest of difficulty settings, it is still unbearably bad. Seasons keep passing. I keep not being able to do things, and I have literally reset across 2 different streams over 20 different times in order to try to solve this problem and do certain things correctly because I was just taking too long, not having money, not having all of these different resources. And, enough was enough. I really had to stop playing. Like, I'm not necessarily a stranger to RPGs. I'm not necessarily a stranger to difficult RPGs that demand time and they demand more perfection from a player. But one thing I am not to expect is to play a game like I'm trying to get Excalibur 2 on my first playthrough. This game forces you to, instead of being able to just accept your mistakes and move on, every mistake compounds to a playthrough basically becoming invalid to the point where you have to restart your entire game and your entire save from scratch just because of the fact that you made a couple of simple mistakes with going to certain areas. You went to an area which was way too high level for you, and now all of a sudden your dogs are dead. And now you have to either reset or you have to recalibrate and decide maybe on this particular season I need to focus on this. And that's all the game was. Linda cubed again and again and again, over and over from start through whenever I was able to get. I was not anywhere close to the end of the Merry Christmas scenario, and I don't think I'll ever be anywhere close to the end of the Merry Christmas scenario. This is one of the worst games I have ever touched as far as a JRPG. It should be, it should have had a feature to turn the timer off, go to an inn to advance it, camp to advance it, like give the player some kind of input control over that. And if somebody wants to play the original intended difficulty from the PC Engine CD, have them preserve that. But this is a terrible RPG experience. I can ignore the running issue in Dragon Song because it stopped being an issue, the lack of being able to target, those sorts of things, because it doesn't poison the way I view the rest of the game, the things that I did like. But everything about the timer poisons everything, and I cannot defend it, and I cannot get past it. There is no getting past the time limit in this game. So that's my opinion. Don't play this game. you will reset, and you will reset hard and pay for your crimes that you didn't even know you committed.